I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you are holding an ancient text.
Right, like a really old, fragile manuscript.
Yeah, exactly. The pages are worn, the binding is practically falling apart, and the language is centuries old.
You're probably expecting something super mystical.
Completely. Based on everything we've been taught about antiquity, your immediate expectation is that you're about to read something, I don't know, poetic, maybe a little abstract.
Something that asks you to suspend your critical thinking.
Right, a text that demands you take this massive leap of faith into the unknown. But what if we completely flip that expectation on its head?
Which is exactly the pivot we're making today.
What if, instead of opening a book of philosophical musings, you were actually looking at a highly sophisticated modular software architecture?
It forces a total paradigm shift, honestly. You have to stop looking for metaphors and start looking for mechanisms.
Yeah.
You basically stop reading the text like it's a collection of poetry and start reading it like it's executable code.
And that is the core mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a truly mind-bending concept laid out in J.R. Ahmet's book, The Algebra of Revelation.
It's such a fascinating read.
It really is. So we're going to decode a very specific alphanumeric sequence found at the beginning of chapter 13 in the Quran. It's 4 letters: Alif-Lam-Mim-Ra, or ALMR.
Right. And for centuries, a lot of people have looked at these isolated letters at the start of certain chapters and just categorized them as profound, unknowable symbols.
Just totally mystical riddles. But Ahmed's research posits something entirely different. He approaches it through this fiercely rational, almost computational lens.
Yeah, he argues that ALMR isn't a mystical riddle meant to confuse you. Instead, it functions as what he terms the systemic header of total reality synchronization.
Okay, let's unpack this. Systemic header of total reality synchronization. That sounds like we're booting up a global supercomputer, not reading religious scripture.
I mean, that is the exact vibe of this framework.
Right. But that's the beauty of it. Think of this sequence as the ultimate metadata of the universe. It's a declaration of total systemic transparency.
Completely open source.
Yes. So we are going to take you on a journey today, moving from the microscopic complexity of the soil beneath your feet to the macroscopic, invisible pillars holding up the stars.
And we're going to do it by treating this text as an objective, analytical protocol.
Exactly. So to understand how this universe-level program actually runs, we need to break down the 4 pillars of this signal.
We have to deconstruct these 4 letters, Aleph, Lam, Mim, and Ra, both mathematically and linguistically, and we're relying strictly on the text's own internal lexicon.
Right, avoiding outside historical assumptions. So let's start with the first letter, Alif.
So in Ahmed's framework, Alif represents the principle of the first, or all. It is the primary source.
The underlying systemic intent.
Exactly.
You know, if we were producing this as an immersive audio documentary, right here, I'd drop in a low-frequency tectonic hum.
Oh, that's a cool way to think about it.
Just that deep, vibrating sound you feel in your chest right before an earthquake hits. It perfectly represents the unmanifested hardware of existence.
Right, that pre-existent state of pure, concentrated potential. It's the state from which every physical law and biological code is eventually going to emerge.
It's the necessary starting point of literally any logical sequence. You simply cannot have a program without a programmer.
Exactly. And once you establish that source, that Alif, you obviously require a mechanism to move that pure potential into an operational reality.
You need a cable.
Right, a connection. That brings us to the second letter, Lam. Lam represents the principle of transmission, or Tanzel.
In network terms, the connectivity channel.
Yes, it signifies the active process of sending down the code.
Keeping with our audio documentary vibe, the soundscape for Lam wouldn't be a tectonic hum. It would be the rhythmic, rushing sound of water.
Like a massive continuous river.
Exactly. It's the data stream flowing outward from the source, carrying all the information required to build the universe.
It serves as the bridge. So in a purely rationalist sense, Lam connects the unmanifested source code of the Aleph to the tangible universe.
But this is key. A transmission channel is totally useless unless the data actually arrives somewhere and builds something functional.
Which leads us directly to the third letter, Mim. Mim acts as the semantic anchor for terms like mubin, meaning manifest or clear, and majid, meaning expanding or glorious.
So this is the principle of manifestation and materiality.
Yes, exactly.
This is where things get heavy. The soundscape here would be the jarring metallic resonance of a high-heat foundry, hammers hitting anvils.
Oh, absolutely. MIM is the exact mechanism where abstract mathematical laws are actually extruded into physical matter.
It's basically the 3D printer of reality.
It's a great analogy. It's where the transmission code renders into biological organisms, celestial orbits, complex weather systems.
It is the raw physical realization of the initial intent.
Right. And finally, we reach the fourth parameter, which is perhaps the most crucial one because it brings you, the listener, directly into the architecture.
The fourth letter is Ra.
Yeah. Ra is the semantic anchor for Ra, which means to actively see or observe, and Baira, which means deep discernment. Ra represents the principle of empirical observation.
So it's the user interface. It's the screen we are looking at to interpret all this data.
That is the perfect way to contextualize it. Ra represents the human thinking center.
Right.
It is our built-in faculty to perceive, to measure, and to actually verify the manifest reality, the Mim, against the original source principles, the Aleph.
So when we string them all together, ALMR, we aren't looking at a mystical chant at all. It's an integrated metadata tag.
It's telling the reader,
Really?
attention, the source Aleph is being transmitted Lam into a material reality Mim that is perfectly observable and verifiable Ra.
It's a literal system notification. It warns you that the module you are about to read demands a complete logical reconciliation between the unseen laws of the universe and the seen, empirical evidence of nature.
And what's fascinating here is how the text immediately proves this pointer logic. The very first verse of Surah 13 reads, Alif-Lam-Mim-Ra. These are the verses of the book, and that which has been revealed to you from your Lord is the truth, but most of the people do not believe.
Notice that structural transition.
Yeah, it moves instantly from defining those four parameters to the declaration. These are the verses of the book.
It's pointing the user exactly back to the framework it just established.
Right. It justifies the claim that this revelation is the truth, or athkara, because the truth is being presented as an integrated, unbroken chain of logic.
It originates in the source, it transmits via revelation, manifests in the physical world, and crucially, it absolutely must be verified by human observation.
Which completely changes the framework for how we define disbelief.
Yeah, if we look at this through the ALMR protocol, disbelief isn't just a lack of blind, fuzzy faith in the supernatural.
Not at all. Disbelief is diagnosed here as a synchronization error.
A critical failure in the system.
Exactly. The human eye actively observes the physical world, the raw parameter, but the intellect fails to connect that observation with the underlying source logic that governs it.
Okay, so if this is a universal operating system, how does it actually run? I mean, show me the code executing in the real world. Let's look at the macro level first.
Surah Ar-Ra'd, which translates to the thunder, by the way, is perfectly suited for this audit.
Because it operates as a treatise on the intersection of physical science, thermodynamics, and human moral responsibility.
Exactly. So let's examine the macroscopic audit in Surah 13, verse 2. It states, "It is Allah who raised the heavens without pillars that you see. Then he established himself above the throne and subjected the sun and the moon, each running for a specified term. He arranges each matter. He details the signs that you may, of the meeting with your Lord, be certain."
Okay, I have to pause and push back on this.
Sure.
The verse specifically says heavens without pillars that you see. It's clearly referring to invisible structural forces holding up the cosmos, what we would call gravity or orbital mechanics.
Right, gravity.
But if the Rye parameter strictly demands empirical observation, how on earth are you supposed to observe an invisible pillar? That feels like a massive glitch in the code. It breaks the raw parameter immediately.
I get why you'd say that, but it's not a glitch. It is the exact paradox the text wants your intellect to confront.
Okay, explain that.
The phrase that you see, Taranaha, deliberately activates the Ra, the observation parameter. You are entirely correct that you cannot see gravity itself.
Right.
What the system demands is that your intellect observes the effects of the invisible laws. Think about how astrophysics discovered dark matter or black holes.
We didn't see them directly.
Exactly. We observed the gravitational pull they exerted on the visible matter around them.
But if I can't see the actual code, how do I know it's not just random physics? How does my observation verify a specific intent?
That is why the verse immediately follows the invisible pillars with the phrase, "He details the signs regarding the sun and the moon, running their courses for a specified term."
Ah, I see.
That activates the Mim, the physical manifestation. You cannot see the underlying gravitational equation, but you can see the sun and moon obeying orbital mechanics with terrifying mathematical precision.
I see the distinction now. The observer is commanded to look at gravitational forces, these invisible structural pillars, and use their measurable effects as empirical proof of the unseen source, the Aleph.
You measure the behavior of the mass, you calculate the orbit, and your user interface, your rational mind, inevitably concludes.
Yeah.
There is an intentional, invisible law governing this.
So gravity proves the macro architecture of the system. It scales infinitely.
It absolutely does.
Okay, so gravity is the invisible architecture on a massive cosmic scale. But if this ALMR protocol is truly universal, it can't just apply to giant rocks floating in a vacuum.
All right, it has to work everywhere.
It has to hold up under the messy, hypervariable conditions of biological life down here on Earth. Does Ahmed's framework survive the transition from astrophysics to biology?
It survives beautifully, actually, and this brings us to the microscopic audit. The narrative shifts seamlessly from orbital mechanics to biology and thermodynamics in Surah 13, verse 4. It says, "And within the land are neighboring plots and gardens of grapevines and crops and palm trees, growing several from a root or otherwise, watered with one water. But we make some of them exceed others in quality of fruit. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason."
Watered with one water. Uska bimain wayidin. That specific phrasing is incredible when you view it as systems architecture.
It operates as a biological audit of output complexity. The
Yeah.
one water is the lamb, the transmitted channel.
Right.
It is a single, unified, chemically identical input. And the incredibly diverse resulting fruits and crops, varying in quality, sugar content, and genetic makeup, that is the MIM, the physical manifestation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about this biological process like a modern software application programming interface, an API.
Oh, I love that comparison.
That one water is essentially an identical universal data stream. It's being fed into millions of vastly different biological endpoints, the neighboring plots of soil, the grapevines, the palm trees. Right. In physics, systems naturally move toward chaos and disorder unless energy and intelligence are applied. If you pour water on a lifeless rock, you just get a wet rock.
Erosion happens. Entropy increases.
Exactly. But if you pour that exact same water on a microscopic seed, you get a complex, highly organized vascular plant that produces fruit.
It requires an underlying code to organize that complexity. That leap from simple input to organized complexity defies entropy completely.
It mathematically necessitates a conscious programmer. The source code, the Aleph, is directing that simple water to unpack itself completely differently depending on the specific genetic parameters of the seed it interacts with.
You cannot have identical, simple inputs generating highly organized, complex outputs by accident.
No, you can't.
And notice the language at the end of that verse. It doesn't say these are signs for people who blindly believe. It explicitly says, indeed in that are signs for people who reason. Liquamin yakilan.
It brings the entire massive framework right back to your intellect, your ekel.
This protocol demands that the human mind actively verify the mathematics behind nature. The human intellect must use the Rho parameter to observe the identical inputs yielding complex outputs, and then logically deduce the conscious source.
Okay, so we have the hardware mapped out with gravity. We have the software outputs mapped out with biological diversity.
Right.
But how does the human mind actually process this overwhelming data stream? We're taking in all this sensory information from the macrocosmos down to the cellular level. How are we supposed to audit it without our systems just totally crashing?
That leads us to the ultimate ALMR laboratory test found in Surah 13, verse 17.
Okay, hit me.
The text moves explicitly into thermodynamics and data filtration here. It says, "He sends down from the sky rain, and valleys flow according to their capacity, or from that ore which they heat in the fire, desiring adornments and utensils, is a foam like it. Thus Allah presents the example of truth and falsehood. As for the foam, it vanishes, being cast off. But as for that which benefits the people, it remains on the earth."
This is a brilliant structural pivot. We are talking about literal foundries now. High heat smelting of metals right alongside hydrology.
Exactly. The Quran uses the smelting of metals and the hydrology of valleys, which represent the mim, of the tangible physical reality, as a directly observable parallel. The Ra to the revelation of truth, the Lam.
Let's translate this metallurgy example into modern data processing terms, because this is wild. Think of a high-heat blast furnace as an advanced sorting algorithm.
Okay, cracking with you.
You dig up raw iron ore from the earth. In its raw state, it's a mess. It's a chaotic mixture of valuable metal and completely useless rock. You throw all of it into the blast furnace.
Right.
The extreme heat forces a systemic separation. The pure, useful metal, which the text defines as the truth, or al-aqu melts, pools together, and solidifies into something structural.
And the impurities, the slag, the foam, which the text calls falsehood, or alveol, rises to the top.
Yes, and it is scraped away and discarded. The algorithm physically separates the signal from the noise.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a staggering philosophical claim.
Truly.
Just as that physical furnace uses extreme heat to separate pure metal from useless slag, your rational mind must process the overwhelming information of reality to separate systemic truth from destructive falsehood.
It's treating human morality and physical thermodynamics as the exact same thing.
Because in this framework, they are not separate realms. That is the core revolutionary message of the ALMR protocol.
Wow.
The physical universe and the moral law are governed by the exact same constants, known as the Sunan Allah. You cannot logically say, well, I believe in the immutable laws of thermodynamics, but human morality is just subjective and relative.
Right, the system rejects that.
Completely. The text argues that falsehood in human behavior operates exactly like slag in a furnace. It introduces structural weakness, it is noise, it is ultimately useless, and will naturally be cast off by the system of reality.
While truth is the pure metal.
Exactly. It is what has systemic utility. It is what remains on the earth to actually benefit people.
So what does this all mean when we pull all the way back and look at the functional purpose of this sequence? This Alif-Lam-Mim-Ra header marks a module of incredibly high-density empirical data. It operates as a total reality check.
It acts as an intellectual reset for the reader. This header is a systemic alert, preparing your mind to look for the invisible hardware, the governing laws behind the visible software, the tangible matter.
It demands that you, the observer, cease treating the physical universe and the moral law as two completely separate, unconnected entities.
This protocol, this 360-degree universal audit, it absolutely refuses to let spirituality remain in some purely supernatural, fuzzy realm.
It demands a fiercely rational, boots-on-the-ground exploration of reality.
Yes, it's telling the reader to cross-reference the gravitational signs in the night sky with the hydrological signs in the river valley, with the thermodynamic signs in the blast furnace.
With the moral signs in the text itself.
Exactly. The acoustic and conceptual signature of this specific sequence is unique in the text.
How so?
The inclusion of all four parameters, the source, the transmission link, the material reality, and the human site, creates the most comprehensive preamble possible. It eliminates any excuse for ambiguity.
It is the signature of a system that charts the complete path of information from intent to interface.
Which brings me right to you, listening to this deep dive right now. Why does this ancient algebra matter to you today?
It matters because it challenges you to stop compartmentalizing your knowledge. We all do it to survive the information age. We have our science and logic brain for work or school, and our philosophy or spirituality brain for the weekend.
Right, we split them up.
But this framework asks you to view the physical world you walk through every single day, not as random background noise, but as an unbroken chain of verifiable data originating from a primary source.
And this raises an important question, something really vital for the observer to reflect on.
What's that?
If the universe is a continuously running, perfectly synced code, from intent, the Aleph, to material reality, the Mem, and our observation, the Ray, is the user interface. What happens to our perception of truth if we allow our internal user interface to become corrupted?
Oh man, like a virus in our own cognition software.
Precisely that. What happens if we allow our minds to be clogged by the societal slag and noise that we simply refuse to filter out?
Right.
If we stop using our intellect as that blast furnace to separate the pure metal from the foam, are we actually experiencing reality anymore? Or are we just living in our own uncalibrated sync errors, entirely disconnected from the source code, mistaking our corrupted screen for the actual world?
If your UI is corrupted, the purest data stream in the universe is going to look like garbage on your screen.
Exactly.
You have to actively run the audit. You have to maintain your own interface. We started this deep dive talking about ancient texts and software architecture, and it turns out the most crucial, vulnerable piece of hardware in the entire ALMR metadata sequence is you.
Your ability to observe, to reason, to separate the signal from the noise.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought that builds on Ahmed's framework but takes it one step further.
Right.
If ALMR is a metadata tag proving that our universe is a mathematically precise system running on conscious source code, then what exactly is human free will?
That is the terrifying question.
Right. In a universe governed by unbreakable physical laws and thermodynamic constants, are our moral choices the only unscripted variables in the entire system? Are we the only entities given the terrifying freedom to introduce slag into a perfect code?
That's a lot to process.
It is. Think about that the next time you step outside. Take a look at the sky or just the soil at your feet a little differently today. Look at it as the physical manifestation of an invisible code, waiting for you to hit run.